Hello YouTube, welcome to another tutorial. As you can see, today we're gonna learn how to paint the furniture. Some of the pieces, because Heroquest is an old game, have a tendency to break easily, like the handles on the torture device and the tails and the rats, which I fixed with green stuff. I cleaned all the plastic thoroughly, got rid of the mold lines, and added some of the stuff that were missing in the box that I got on eBay. So today the tutorial is about furniture. Get ready! So we're starting with lead belcher. As usual, I like to paint the metals first, because that way if I stain anything that is painted with white and is going to be painted with washes, I can fix it immediately. So all the chests and tables have a lot of metal pieces, and I paint those with a quite big brush because I don't want to spend much time doing this. This, if you've been watching my videos, is probably something that you're very familiar with. We start painting the metals. Always, if possible, start painting the metals. It saves a lot of time and it's gonna make your life much easier. After doing lead belcher, I go with Gehenna's gold and I paint the candles and some other stuff, like some of the rims, corners in the books, some of the materials that are on the alchemist tables, etc, etc. You'll see now. We call it down on the metals now. So some pots, some stuff. It's up to you. You decide what you want to be gold and what you want to be metallic, silvery. And after we're done with that, we go to the next step, which is, as usual, Seraphim Sepia. Use Seraphim Sepia to paint the metals and the wood and leather parts of the miniatures of these models. Here I'm gonna use Daimler Rowney Raw Sienna. These are acrylic artist inks and they work wonderfully. So I decided that I wanted to give a base coat to the wood in these miniatures using this yellowish wash or ink. I think will do justice to the wood and it will look a little bit different from the Seraphim Sepia that I usually use for this. I did with this the throne, the top of the cupboards and the small details here and there made of wood, such as also the torture bench. So let's recap. With this wash, we did the weapon rack, the alchemist table, all the furniture from the tables and the chests, and also the top of the cupboards. And then I went and used red earth to give it an extra coat on top of that. But this one, as you can see, I'm watering down as to make it a little bit more transparent, translucent, so we can see the undercoat and it is not a red, a very strong red, which might be what you will encounter if you don't water down this wash. And we'll repeat the process with every single piece of wood that I painted thus far, with a couple of exceptions, which you will see next. You will have noticed I'm using a Games Workshop paint pot. I transfer some of the ink into that. I'm using smaller pots because I don't want these washes or these inks to dry up because I'm opening their big bottles all the time. So I think it's a better solution just to transfer it to small bottles. Now with white scar, remember we were painting this the other day for the doors. I'm doing a light dry brush with white to this, and the flagstones that go with the fireplace, the chimney, one of the most iconic pieces of terrain or scenery for Heroquest. Next is Agrex Earthshade, as usual, and we're gonna darken the metals, another very common step in my painting. And I think, why not, you know, once you learn how to do something and if it works quite nicely every time, I think it's good to stick to it. That way you finesse, refine your technique and make it a little bit better every time that you use it. So I'm doing all the shafts of the weapons and the metals again. Typical, okay? If you see my videos on other miniatures, you will see that this is one of my typical systems of painting. Is just paint the metal, darken it with sepia, darken it with Agrex Earthshade, and then highlight. The torture table I left unpainted with the reddish wash, and I just darken it with Agrex. But I'm darkening a little bit again with Agrex on the top of the cupboards. And the reason for this is because I don't want them to look that reddish. I want to mute down a little bit the color, and also to darken those small crevices that you can see on the carving and also on the grain of the wood. We repeat the process with the tables as well. But basically, everything that is wood, everything that we painted thus far, is gonna receive the Agrex treatment. Yes, I'm doing it to the tomb too. I noticed that after the white dry brush, it turned out to be too white. So I decided to mute it down with this wonderful wash. And I did that also to the flagstones on the chimney. Now I'm transferring some of the I put too much of Agrex and I'm just transferring it from one side to another. So before it dries, you can do things like this. You just can get rid of the excess. I'm here darkening the pages on the book and the metals once again. The table, this table in particular, I want to do something a little bit more special. And the awesome, beautiful carving that is done, the sculpting on these miniatures, which are over 20 years old nowadays. They are 30 years old. My gosh, I'm old. This wonderful carving, this wonderful sculpting, it holds up to today's standards. Look at those letters in the book, man. Now I'm gonna use this sepia. This is a discovery on its own. It's so close to the old Citadel dark brown wash, and I love it. Okay, so I'm gonna use it, as you can see, to draw the grain of the wood on these cupboards, on these cabinets, on these small libraries. And I do that by getting the wash straight away from the bottle and drawing with it it doesn't take much effort, just a little bit of pulse, and paint the lines. They don't need to be straight. It's better if they are not straight. So if you're careful, you can obtain a very cool effect of wood grain with very little effort. Just draw lines, some scratches here and there, like I'm doing, and you will get a beautiful effect. I'm doing that to the table too, using the sculpted, the carved texture that the wood has, and also drawing it on the flat surfaces of chests and things like that. The torture rack obviously is very flat, and I didn't want it to look like that. I want it to look old, worn out, used. I mean, this is not IKEA furniture by any means. This is something that it has been used and abused, and the grain makes the wood look old. So that's the trick here, okay? We're talking about a dungeon. We don't want designer furniture. We want it to look old, used, and I don't know how to explain. You know, cool. As you can see, I didn't use the reddish wash on the throne, and I just went through and finished all my wood. At this moment, I glued all the cardboard to every single piece of furniture. So the wooden ones are almost finished, sans a couple of details. Okay, and the detail that we're gonna do next is highlighting the metals with iron breaker. But as I said before, my idea for this furniture is to make it look old, used, and abused. So the highlights have to be careful and thought. Where are you gonna put this? You're not gonna put it all over the place. So small dots here and there. If you look at the video with the skeletons, watch that, you will see how I treat my highlights on these miniatures. I wanted to take my time because Heroquest is a piece of work that I wanted to dedicate myself for my friends who are playing with me. I pondered through the idea of sculpting all the cardboard pieces, but I decided that it was not making justice to Heroquest. This is quintessential. They are part of it, and instead of making a shoddy job of a sculpt and making something that is not exactly the way it looks when it comes out of the box, I think it's just better just to use it the way it is. Just paint it cool, put those cardboard pieces and just own it. And I think it does start, it's starting to look good now. So more highlights here and there, as you can see, okay? But this is when the things turn to be fun. When you start highlighting, you start seeing the real results. So enjoy it as much as I do, and you will see how your painting is gonna come to life. Now we're gonna get back some of the gold into place. I mean, once you use Agrex, which is a great wash, as I said, there's an issue, and these washes is on these washes is that it muffles down the colors. And for the metals, I would like to make them pop. The highlights on gold are just gold. Okay, I want it to be as close as possible to the painting style that was part of the Heroquest originally. So nothing fancy here, just the same color that we used before to paint it, carefully leaving the shading underneath. I'm just gonna use gold once again. With Drakenhof Nightshade, we're gonna paint the fur of the rats. I wanted them to look blackish, grayish black, because you know everything is wood, everything is brown, and if we paint them brown, they will not pop out enough. So I'm gonna use this also to paint some of the bottles, some of the small details here and there, like the handles of the axe, some weapons. But it's not a lot of work. Drakenhof Nightshade is my choice of color to paint black with washes. It's the first coat usually, because it leaves this grayish residue on the miniatures. After that, Gilliman Blue. I'm gonna paint this shield in blue because, you know, I think it needs blue. For some reason I decided to do blue on this one. I leave it dry flat so the wash doesn't run onto the bottom, and after it dries I give it a second coat as to enrich the color. Otherwise it will be too pale and you will notice that it's painted with something that is not as solid as a paint. We want to mimic the highlights of paints, but we don't want to make it look as if we're painting with washes at the same time. For the flesh or the skin of the rat, the one that is not covered by fur, we're gonna use Raglan Flesh Shade. And also, I saw that this color will fit very well on those wear and tear that you're gonna have on the furniture, okay? So use this and color the cardboard where it's exposed. It will look perfectly fine, believe me. It makes a big difference. On this reddish furniture, it's gonna make perfect sense to paint with this wash. One coat. Now we go for the second one, enriching the color once again. We don't want a pale rat, we just want it to look as if we had spent a little bit extra time painting 3 different shades of flesh. And with known oil, we're gonna finish the fur by giving 1 coat of this black wash on top of where we painted Drakenhof Nightshade, achieving thus a very beautiful black with gray highlights. We're gonna use now Abaddon Black, one of the few paints, real paints that we use, to make sure that the skulls have the details painted, the eyes, the teeth painted in black, so we can highlight them later. And as you can see here on the torture rack, I'm painting fake holes on those small things to hold your feet. Now with White Scar, I'm gonna highlight the skulls. This is totally optional. I'm just a freak of highlighting bone with white, as you know from a skeleton video. And I'm doing that on each one of the skulls of the set. Also painting a small eye on the rats and their teeth. And all this furniture is already finished, but we haven't finished yet, have we? No, we haven't. So the next step now is to paint the rest, the other stuff that we have. But this Done. So I'm gonna get all my green washes, these three, Weight Watcher, Coelia, and Athonian Camel Shade, and I'm gonna start painting the altar with Weight Watchers. As you can see, I did a few lines here and there, and then I did some other lines with a different green wash, okay, in this case Coelia, and I'm trying to achieve a marble effect with greens. I want the table, I want the altar to look very different from the rest of the set because, well, it's a magical item. So I'm using all three washes here and there, and with Athonian Camel Shade I'm just painting the whole thing, trying to blend in those two previous colors. Also, when I'm doing Weight Watchers, I decided to paint this bottle green. For some reason it made sense. I've seen so many bottles, and once again I'm drying it upside down so it doesn't get all condensed at the bottom. Here also painting the handle of the sword. Just some details, okay? It's up to you to decide where you're gonna paint everything and with what. Abaddon black again, and now I'm painting very thin lines following the pattern that I painted before. Be careful on these steps, okay? But as you can see, the paint is very dilute. It's not solid at all. I want just to make it look more natural. Coelia again, once again, I'm going to darken the small patterns, the flaming patterns of the stone, as to make sure that we can see that it's sculpted. I also use it to make sure that the lines pop up. So just use it as you think fit, okay? Just make sure that the table looks the way that you want it to look. I'm using it too. Once again, sorry, I'm using Weight Watchers green for a second coat to make it look a solid color on the details that I painted before. We let it dry, and then once again, Coelia, we're gonna use it to darken certain areas on these, okay? The handle of the sword, we wanted to make it look even more solid. And as you can see, I'm painting the bottle, but only at a certain point, at a certain level, because I want it to look as if it has liquid inside. So I decided that this was the height where the liquid will show through the glass. Two coats. Very careful on this step, and once again make sure that the paint stays where it should be. Ushapti now. I'm gonna highlight the book pages. The candles from before, which were washed. Now I'm gonna have a few highlights with the Ushapti, just to get rid of the very brown effect from the washes. And then we're gonna use white scar to very carefully paint some lines on the altar. These should follow the black lines that we painted before, but they have to be even more subtle than those. And here we have the stone effect that I wanted to create. Now with a little bit of brown paint or brown ink, the sepia wash, I'm drawing some runes and some enchantment, some spell, something on the empty page. The empty page is absolutely sculpted in the way of somebody that is going to paint it with something, okay? So go wild on it, just paint whatever. Highlight the candles, the flame with white. And as you can see, I'm gonna do the skull here too. Could have done this before, but sometimes I just take my time and do steps that I did before a little bit later, okay? I'm gonna use white scar as well for something very cool, and it's painting these logs and some of the rocks which are close to the fire, but not overall. I'm just painting a little bit here and there. Okay, the logs were painted before with washes, like all the wood. And after I do those highlights, I'm gonna paint them with Lamenter's yellow as to achieve a source lighting from the fire. As you can see, I'm also painting the small stains on the cardboard, the use and abuse that these models had before I bought them, meant that I needed to paint a little bit of those small, you know, damage, that small damage that they get on the cardboard. The lion is gonna get the same treatment, Lamenter's yellow, and after it dries, I'm gonna use Casandora yellow to darken a little bit. Casandora yellow is not exactly yellow, it's more like an orange, and I want to tone down certain highlights here and there, just to make sure that they look as natural as possible, okay? I want some of these to look like embers and some of them to look like fire. On the candles, at the bottom, I'm gonna put a drop of Casandora yellow. And the lion is gonna get the same treatment here and there, a little bit of Casandora yellow, just to make that yellow pop, make it richer. Not a pale yellow, a nice, strong, thick yellow. I'm gonna do the same thing with a page marker on the book, on the small, I don't know how you guys call those things, rivets maybe, I don't know. And I'm gonna give some Fuegan orange to the handles of the mace, and the shield is gonna be painted likewise, as to have a yellow lion on a reddish background. I'm giving a second coat on the handles of the maces, because if you're not gonna use a different color, just give it 2 coats so it becomes richer. And as you can see, I'm using once again Fuegan orange, and now I'm working on the chimney, creating a little bit more of reddish hue on some of the embers. I'm also highlighting or maybe staining the flagstones so as to resemble the fire reflecting on them. Not as strong as with the yellow. We want to make it look as if it's fading out, light is fading out as it goes far away from the fire. Last, with no oil, I'm gonna darken some of the wood, and then I'm gonna work a little bit more on the flagstones, creating deeper shadows on the places farther away from the fire, and also the backside. Remember that Heroquest is a 3-dimensional game and you can see the materials and the scenery from all sides. This is the result. The book, I decided to paint it as well in a reddish brown. I think it's a color that will pop perfectly well against the green marble. This small pot that I totally forgot about, I decided this color will be great because it will make it look like a ceramic pot. Then we go with the fine color called Bloodletter. I love this color. And we darken those materials that we just painted. We're gonna make them look a little bit reddish, but it's a very good complement with that orange paint. You just saw I made a mistake. I stained something. Well, get your finger, get that drop out, maybe use a napkin, don't fuzz it, just clean it straight away. cardboard crimson, another wash that I shaded, whatever you want to call it. I love this one. It gets such a nice color, man, with no work whatsoever. I'm gonna paint this page marker with this, and I'm gonna darken the book in a way that makes it look a little bit, I don't know, better. And also the handle of the sword that I had completely forgotten about, so I decided to do this. And because I painted this with gray, I decided to paint cardboard crimson to make a liquid look inside, to be seen inside the bottles. Okay, the cardboard crimson is very good to darken greens, grays, things like that. The results are awesome. Dragon Hop Nightshade, we're gonna paint the fleur-de-lis. Careful, and we are also gonna touch up a little bit here and there to make sure that these handles look good. A little bit on the letter from the book, and I think I just wanted to make sure that all the symbols will pop up, so I just painted them twice to gain more detail. This bottle is gonna get the same treatment. I'm basically touching up everything, darkening things. I want to make sure that everything seems the way I want it to look. Drucci Violet is going to be used to darken cardboard crimson. That is the two-step combo I used a lot for getting that deep, nice purple. And as you can see, I'm giving a small touch up here and there on the spell, the incantation. Obviously the bottles are gonna get the same treatment, a little bit of extra violet here and there, as to make it look as if they are interesting liquids. And now one of my favorite parts of the tutorial, which is painting small labels on these potions, bottles, whatever you call them, flasks, I don't know. So I'm gonna paint a small square thing here and there, as you can see in both bottles, because children, if you are a wizard, an alchemist, whatever, please label your components. It's very important. You never know what you're gonna mix. Might be sodium, might be water, might be an accident waiting to happen. As you can see, I'm also using this to highlight a little bit the bottle, to make a small reflection. And I think I'm doing it with white, straightforward white. The paint is very dilute. I don't want to overdo it. Just highlighting carefully here and there. Obviously, this is sped up. I don't paint that fast, I wish. And yeah, this is white, obviously. I'm painting the feather, well, the quill or whatever, the pen, and all these small things. The table is a pleasure to paint. It has so many details that you want to work, and the altar as well. The book is awesome. It's so fun to paint. You can go wild on that empty page, man. You can do very cool stuff. I just want something simple to finish the tutorial and then to finish the table, so I could play with it with my friends. But you can go bollocks on that thing. A few highlights on the fleur-de-lis, because it's gray and I just wanted it to pop with a very strong, nice white against the blue of the shield. Using my faithful sepia from FW Daimler washes, I'm gonna paint the names of the potions. Obviously, I'm not gonna write real letters. I'm gonna paint something that looks like something is written over there, a rune, whatever. And I'm also tracing the small paper, so it makes it look better. I'm using it also to darken some of the parts where I highlighted too much with gold, The pages, again, make sure that there is a good distinction between what is paper and what is the book cover. And last but not least, I'm gonna use Nihilac oxide to oxidize the pieces made of metal in the alchemist table. And that's basically it. Call it done. Photos now. Well, Heroquest is a pleasure to paint. I love doing it. It's one of my favorite games of all times, and painting the furniture has been tremendously fun. Thank you for watching the video. I hope to see you on the next one. This is Miguel, signing out. Bye!